First of all, thanks for y'all tuning in, coming in. We got some new people that's on. Definitely want to thank the students, student athletes, and definitely want to hear from you guys and ladies. I'm sorry. Uh, Again, we've been doing these. This is the fifth one. Last night, a group of us got together. Myself, Ray Mills, Mike Hop, Travis, Mr. Brunker, Louis. Um, who else was on there? Ryan Meyer. And we started to. The goal is to come up with a solution, and you know we're going to talk about that today. And I definitely want the students to, I'm hoping, I'm not for sure, but I talked to Norman early today, and he was going to try to get in because it's interesting conversation with him about the perception of, the NBA. Like, I don't know if y'all know that they asked the players, what, they want to put on back of their jerseys to represent in what's going on. And I forgot the quote, and I'm hoping he comes on so he can tell you the quote that he wanted to put on, but they wouldn't let him put on his jersey. And it was interesting hearing his concept, his mindset of at that level, at the NBA level, what people think, how's it how's it being a teammate, like with the white athletes, with the black athletes, with management. So I'm definitely hoping he snaps on tonight. But with that said, I talked to Ray, with Coach Hop. We've been taking notes. We've been nailing some things out because at the end of the day, we do want to try to come up with a solution. We definitely do. With Coach Bass, Coach Dumas, who've been great, giving us some great input. So, these Zoom calls is simply about, I started them, to try to mend, hopefully, like if Marlon said, like if we do play, hopefully that, they're coming up with all type of protocols, how to return for the COVID-19. And I know most of y'all heard me say we're dealing with two viruses. We're dealing with the COVID-19, we're dealing with racism. Those are two viruses. Racism virus has been around the longest. And I feel if we don't, try to deal with it at the coaching level, at the grassroots level, with the student athletes, talking. I mean, like Delina was on like 2 weeks ago, and how she expressed being pulled over and stopped and harassed. Um, I think we need to come up with a plan, to come up with a way that we had Scott Juicy, who's over City Schools, was on last night also. So, we're trying to make, at the end of the day, we're trying to find a solution, to make change, to, you know, do it at the grassroots level, and then maybe, the collegiate level and the height, what I'm saying, we'll take a breath. So with that said, Mike, I'm gonna let you take it over, but I definitely want the young people, if there's anything you want to ask the young people, how they feel or what they going through, or like Coach Bass said, he talks to his players every day. They got different uh, things they do on Zoom calls. So just get that out.
We'll do that for sure. So Jeff, thank you again for once again hosting this. This is the fifth consecutive week of gathering on this topic. And as Jeff mentioned earlier, he invited a very special guest who is now on. Norman Powell, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
You're in the bubble, huh?
In the bubble, Orlando.
Oh man. So what we're going to do is coaches, if you have athletes on the call right now, be prepared to introduce them. But Jeff, I'm going to kick it back to you for a second so you can properly introduce Norman as he enters in and kicks off this conversation.
Most of y'all know who he is. Norman played at Lincoln. He grew up in Southeast. He played, his whole career at Lincoln. He went on to UCLA, and he's at Toronto Raptors now. And he's a young man that I love because he always gives back. You know what I'm saying? It's not a day that you ask him to do something, he's not here. You know what I'm saying? With this going on, we had to cancel the camp, the Norman Powell camp this year. We had to cancel the increase the piece this year. But I talked to Norman on text earlier, and telling that we're doing this, and I just wanted like let Norman, off just talk about you at the pro level, and how are you guys dealing with what we've been there before, Norm, and we didn't talk about this before. We've been there before, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But how is it at the NBA level? I know the NBA is saying you can wear things. We chit chatted about they wouldn't let you put something on the back of your jerseys that you wanted to put. But how, because the kids look up to the NBA players. So how is it at that level among players, among coaches, among GMs? How does it feel to be back one? And then how does it feel? Is it different than before what happened with George Floyd, or is it about the same?
Right now, I think we're doing well with my team, with the organization. We've done a great job of hearing everybody's voices. Like, everybody's involved from top to bottom of the organization, holding everybody accountable. Besides being the point man and making sure the dialogue and the movement continues, and trying to figure out ways that we can, as an organization, affect change, not only in our respective communities for each one of the players, but over the borders in Toronto. When we were in Orlando, we had multiple team meetings about our views and what we would like to see changed, and how we thought we could go about doing that, the right steps moving forward to show where we stand as an organization. I don't know if a lot of you guys seen like the Black Lives Matter team bus when we were traveling down to the bubble, but that was just like the start of it. We've also set up a whole committee that's designed 3 players, 3 coaches, 3 guys from the front office, and guys on the MLS East side of the whole organization foundation of Maple Leaf Sports in Toronto. And we're just coming and talking on Zoom calls and trying to see how we can collectively attack this top to bottom. League perspective, top players, Chris Paul, LeBron, and them have been hosting player-only meetings about how we can take advantage of the restart of the season and use this platform of television to show where we're at, and really hold people accountable for the things that are going on. I don't know if you guys seen like the interview with Harris and Marcus Smart. When it comes to like answering questions and things like that, they're giving them one statement, for the lawyer involved in the Breonna Taylor incident to hold the police officers accountable and make moves, and they're not moving from that stance. No matter what the question is, we're talking about basketball, whatever it is, they're holding firm on that statement. And I think that's where it starts. Using the platform that we have to continue to put this in the media's face and people's face that don't really understand or are just stubborn and don't want to listen. We're going to make you listen, and we're not going to shut up. We're not going to be quiet, and we're going to keep this in the forefront. And I think we're in a very unique time where our generation can really make moves and really make a stance and make change, because we're young, we have the platform, and this is when we're the strongest. And I think this league's done a great job in using that platform to move forward.
Norman, if you were back at Lincoln High School right now, and we have several high school athletes on the call tonight, what can they do to try and replicate what's been done in the league right now?
I think the biggest thing is honestly speaking up and bringing in your fellow classmates and fellow teammates, and coming together and trying to figure out how you can attack this, and continuing to put the message out. It's not a thing where you're gonna come up with something right away and it's gonna affect change, but a constant protest, whether it's whatever you post on social media or when things start to open back up and you guys start having tournaments or whatever it is, voicing your opinion and where you stand. I think that's the biggest thing, showing unity and making sure that you're calling out the right people, and letting the people in charge know that this is where we stand, and we're not going to move until you make the right decision to make the effective change.
Right on. We're going to open it up to the athletes right now to ask Norman any questions you might have about what's going on with him in the league in terms of this topic, and any ideas he might have where you're coming from. So before you speak, if you just tell him who you are, what school you're at, what sports you play, and what's on your mind. Who'd like to go first? Okay, Delena's going to go first. We know. There you go.
Don't call me out like that. Well, I mean, I guess I just like, I don't really have anything to ask. I just like want to ask like how your experience has changed being like in an environment where it's like predominantly Black. Do you enjoy it more? Is it like you love it, or are there still things that like microaggressions you face, things that irritate you, stuff in that sort?
I think where we're at right now, I'm in a place where everybody's on the same page, from coaches who aren't Black, you know, talking to them, they're really proactive in trying to figure out how they can help, you know, how they can be a part of this, and showing where they stand, you know, and trying to be there just to be able to listen, see where we come from and see what we're about and see our stories, so they can feel what we feel and trying to get a grasp of what's going on, because a lot of them haven't been in situations that we've been in, or experienced the things that we experienced growing up in our lives. So they're really open to listening, you know, and learning and expanding their knowledge on the situation and trying to figure out how they can help. So I feel like I'm in a unique environment right now. It's been fun. It's been good. The dialogue has been continued, and I'm just excited to see like how as players, since we're all together, this is very unique. We're here for 3+ months, top to bottom, superstars of the league, and the guys trying to make a name for themselves, and how we can all come together and really push this agenda forward. I think this environment has been really great.
So Norman, you probably know by now that high school sports and throughout California have been backed up to the wintertime right now. So all the fall sports have been backed up. No football, no anything that's been played traditionally in the fall is going to be pushed back to winter, hopefully. And I know some of the coaches were talking earlier, they don't know if their basketball season will ever take off this year. But here you are in a bubble, you are going to play. What can you do if you're not playing? So if you're virtual learning in school, you know, what any suggestions for the athletes on the call, what they may consider doing in lieu of being together as a team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to stay focused on your main goal. You know, when the hiatus first happened, the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I was like really excited, like, oh, we're gonna get right back to it. Whatever it is, they're gonna figure it out. But as the days went on, and you know, started to get on the calls with the NBPA, talking to Michelle Roberts about how the league was gonna take a couple more months. You know, it got kind of tough and kind of hard to stay focused and stay committed to the ins and out process of staying ready for whenever it did start. But I think the biggest picture, the biggest goal is to stay focused on your end game, you know, and what you can do. For me, it was taking the time to learn and educate yourself. You know, you have an abundance of time where you can really get on the computer, see what's going on, educate yourself on the situations at hand in the civil war that we're fighting on our home turf right now, with social justice, and then figure out how you can better your weaknesses and make them your strength. You have so much time. You know, I know it kind of gets tough and you want to go out and see your friends or do certain things, but I think this is the perfect time where you can really hone in on yourself and learn more about yourself and continue to grow. So when you come out, you know, you're ready to go and you're not taking a step back.
Okay, any other athletes have anything they'd like to ask of Norman before we open it up to the coaches?
My name is Denon Faga from Mira Mesa. My question is, how did like the front office and people who weren't white, how did they support you during this time? Like, did they text you or anything, or like give you any like support?
I received a lot of text messages from the coaches and the people in front office. And when everything went on, and I feel like maybe it wasn't even a week that went by where we didn't jump on the Zoom call as a team, you know, trying to figure out where everybody's head's at, how everybody feels. We really had an open discussion about what was going on, you know, and our thoughts and our stance. And we told the coaches that, you know, it's on them to be a part of this. You know, they're the ones that can affect change in their own community. With I don't know if this is the right thing to say, with their people. And be a standpoint for us. You know, we can say and do all we want and things like that when you're the oppressed, right? But it takes the people who aren't oppressed to be able to speak up and show where they stand. You know, and that it's really equality for all. You know, not just one group. You know, you feel like you kind of get lost when the oppressed people keep speaking up, and over time, you know, the voices kind of get drained out. You know, because it's the same people. But to have different people in different areas that with different racial background and ethnicity speaking up and standing on your side, it kind of pushes the envelope forward and showing that it's more than just the oppressed people that see and view what wrong is being done. And the coaches have done a great job in making sure checking in with us weekly. You know, if we need mental support and just being able to express how we feel, or you know, we're depressed about what we're seeing on social media and the news and things like that. They've been tremendous in that aspect.
Okay, who's next?
I have a question. Malcolm Williams from St. Augustine. Norman, if you had to educate anybody, what was the best method you would use to educate people on the situation that's going on right now, for like people that don't really understand about like Black Lives Matter or something like that?
I think the biggest thing for me that has helped educate people around me who are stubborn is talking from my own life experiences with the things I've been through. I kind of get frustrated when I'm talking about the instance with George Floyd or Tamir Rice and trying to explain to people, you know, why this is wrong, you know, and trying to like educate them that way, because when people see things, they tend to just look at it and stand on their opinion from once they see it, but they don't really understand it from a different point of view. So coming from a person who they respect and like, oh, like you're such this model citizen, role model, we look up to you, and like you feel like you're a great person, you know, and really telling them like, this is what I went through when I got pulled over by the police when I was back home in my community, you know, and you guys sit up here and try to be like, oh, you're not oppressed, you're rich now, you have money, and you're complaining and you're whining. Well, I didn't always have money. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. Like I worked my way up to where I'm at now, you know, and being in this career doesn't protect me from when I take this jersey off and I go back home, because these police officers don't know who I am off rip, off jump. So the fact that you're sitting up here and being so ignorant to the fact of my career and my job, like that holds me separate from where I come from, is a problem, you know? So that's how I try to educate them, in a sense of talking about myself rather than trying to always talk about different incidences that has happened that we see worldwide in America, because they're going to be skewed in their opinion of what the media is putting out. But if it's coming from me and my own personal experience and what I've been through, they kind of see it from a different light, because it's like, man, like you went through this. Like I can't believe that you went through that. I would have never thought, because of what they see on the internet. Oh, he went to Lincoln, he graduated, went to UCLA, this, that, and the other, and he's just a great person. He does so much that they don't think that I could be put through that. So the best way to educate them is me talking personally from what I've gone through.
Okay, before we go on to the next one, I think Diedrich, if you can hear us, if you can mute yourself, because we're getting some background noise from somebody. Okay, any other athletes that would like to ask a question? If not,
I got a question.
Okay.
I'm AJ Bergen from San Diego High. I was just wondering, did they give you an exact reason why you couldn't put "Am I Next" on the back of your jersey?
The exact reason was that the NBPA was fighting with the NBA in doing this and doing the name change in the back of the jersey. I think once they kind of put it out there that they were gonna do this, I kind of think the NBA got scared and saw the responses of what the players are gonna put out, and they wanted to kind of control it, so where it wasn't people saying F the police and this, that, and the other. Like they wanted to kind of censor what was being said, and the NBA told the NBPA that they had to come out with a list of what they wanted to put on there for it to be approved. Either way, I mean, I didn't agree with it, but they said this was a list and we couldn't go from that because that's what it was approved from the league. But yeah, that was the main thing. The NBPA had to get the list approved by the league to get those sayings put on.
Norman, can you continue on that a little bit about how come sometimes you might not get everything you want, but it is a back and forth. I mean, you've got both sides. You got the unions, you've got the NBA, but you're still making progress and you still got to keep up the fight. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that dialect and even be a part of a league that's open to letting their players' voices be heard. You see so much stuff that's going on with the NFL and how they cast out their players who speak up on these social justice issues and not really hearing them. And now that the league the NBA is being the leaders in sports right now and letting their voices, their players' voices be heard. The NFL is now trying to jump on the bandwagon, but you're not going to get everything that you want right away. It's a continued process over the years. I mean, we're here now and we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot more to go. But it's a constant and consistent fight, to really have progress. And I think that the dialogue with the players have been amazing, and the NBPA is really fighting and pushing for everybody's voices to be heard, from the top guys to the bottom, rookies that, have a stance on these on this topic. But it's a constant fight. We're doing things now here in the bubble in the next coming weeks as players and having different rallies and meetings and hopefully get some media in there to listen and hear what we're talking about. Because like I said, we're in such a unique time with everything being shut down and in quarantine where the eyes on the TV and eyes on us are going to be major. We're going to have major views TV wise. So we're continuing to fight and see how we can continue to push the NBA to open up some lanes for us to continue to push this agenda.
And I know you will. Coaches, do you have any questions of Norman?
I got a quick question. First, Norm, I want to say thanks for letting me join your basketball camp you did at Lincoln the last couple of years. I wear your bracelet every day.
Yes,
Understand
sir.
the grind. My son's been very inspired by being around you. But I grew up right by Lincoln. I went to Morris because my mom was a Tiger, but I grew up right by Lincoln, right off the four corners of death. And what specifically would you like to see change in San Diego if you had a magic wand or if you had some influence on making some progress towards racial equality here? Is it more about law enforcement? Is it opportunities? Is it economics? I'm curious as to what you would like to see come out of this movement in San Diego.
What I want to see is the community really come together. I think we have great people in place that want to do good and stand for bringing up the next generation and making sure that they're on the right path. But I think unity within the community first, within its people, before we start to go out and trying to get the political side done. We have to have more togetherness within our community. In the different events that we're putting on, we need more heads in there. We need more people who've gone through the ringer, and came out the other side speaking up and talking and trying to change the narrative of what goes on in the streets of Southeast San Diego. I think that's where we start. And once we come together that way, we can start moving with more force and more power and to affect change in the police reform, and the educational reform and things like that. But I feel like we're very divided as a community, and I still see that till this day, and that's one of the main things that I talked about at the last Increase a Piece on Instagram. We have Coach Jeff putting on an amazing event, talking about bringing the community together, stopping gang violence, and really seeing that we're all one, you know, and we're divided because the people in power have us divided, you know, and this is what's happened over the years. And now it's time to cut the bullshit with, oh, I'm from Skyline, I'm from here. I'm like, who the fuck cares where you're from? You know, we're all the same, and we're all fighting and trying to make it out of this community and make it better, you know. And I think the biggest thing right now for me is bringing all sides together and trying to affect change within ourselves, and then we branch out and affect change over the course of everything politically.
Unity in the community. Who else has something to add?
Go ahead for the cussing.
Oh, yeah, I won't tell. Never heard you cuss. Ever. Oh, my.
I heard him cuss in practice a couple times.
Oh, no.
Hey, Norm, in your opinion, do you, I know the players is one thing, but do you think the association, the NBA association is doing enough? Do you think that, you know, with the league, 85% African Americans, you know what I'm saying? Do you think there should be more African American owners, coaches? You know, has that been brought up among, you know what I'm saying, you guys as players? And, you know, like I said, do you think the NBA, if it wasn't for you guys, like, okay, we've been here before. We was here 4 years ago, and the NBA gave us everybody T-shirts, I can't breathe. Okay, great. 4 years later, we're back at it. So what do you think? Do you think now if the players have the power when they didn't have the power 4 years ago with you know, with Tamir Rice and Eric Garner and Mike Brown?
I think honestly, there's always more that can be done. You know, that I think there's more of a stance that can be taken. I think the league's done a great job in listening and really seeing and how they can help. But I think they know where the stance is, right? But it's still a political game. You know, it's still about money. It's still about viewership, ownership. But within our organization, we've talked about that. You know, how come there aren't enough presidents and guys of color in higher positions? How come there's not enough Black coaches that are given that full opportunity to succeed, you know, in the league? I think pushing that narrative, and Masai's done a great job with that, and telling them, like, you know, like, we're here and this change needs to happen, you know. And he said, like, why am I the only one in this position of where we're at, you know? And I think that's the most important thing, that to have that narrative and have those hard talks to really affect change. And I think the league can do a lot more, obviously, but we know that, you know, it's going to continue that we have to continue to push them to the edge for them to actually make change. But I think progress is going to be made, and, you know, the steps are being taken to put the right people in power, you know. And it's like, okay, we have, when that does happen, when we have enough Black coaches in the league, how are we going to approach it then, you know? But I definitely think in the next few months and upcoming season, you're going to start to see changes of having Black people in a higher position of power throughout the league.
Norman, tell us a little bit more about Masai. I know some folks may not know much about him. I saw a documentary on him. Maybe it was a 60-minute piece. Amazing interview with him. But he's more than just, you know, is he the only Black president in the NBA?
Yeah, he's the only Black president in the NBA, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but
I
the
think
last
he
talk
is.
that we had as a team, I believe he is.
So tell us about him, what more you know about him that we may not know. The kind of things he does, his passions.
His passion is giving back, especially where he's from, Africa, you know, and pushing that narrative of that there's nothing out there, you know, and that, you know, it's a wasteland, and there is poverty, and like nothing good comes out there. He's done an amazing job of going back and showing the other side of it that people don't really get to see, you know, that the media kind of pushes to the side and only shows certain things, you know. And he's done a great job building that up through the NBA Cares program, Basketball Without Borders, and bringing over talents and talking about them and showing that there's more to Africa, you know, and there's more to Black people. I feel like he's the next Nelson Mandela, so to speak, in terms of where he stands and using his voice and his position to affect change, and really bring about diversity and how we're all one. He doesn't hold back on this topic, and he really cares. That's one thing that I took from our very first meeting when we got to Naples, before everything jumped off, and we went to practices and things like that. He sat down and voiced, like, this is where we stand. Like, this isn't enough, and we have to do more. And now's not the time to be shy or shy away or just be okay with the bare minimum. As soon as we accomplish one thing, we got to keep going and pushing for more, because effective change isn't going to happen within the next months. It's a consistent thing through the years, and he's done a great job with that through Giants of Africa, and having documentaries and interviews and being really the focal point of where this organization stands. And that starts with the ownership of Larry Tannenbaum. He stands with us, and he's really opening up the gateways for us to use whatever we need and giving us whatever we need to get the results that we want.
It's bigger than basketball, and he's a great example of that. And by the way, he's got a world championship under his belt too, and I mean that's pretty good, isn't it? That's pretty.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, it's really good. I mean, a lot of people didn't believe like what he was doing, and it's really, I feel like for us being in Canada, we're really kind of separated from America, even though you have a lot of American players on that team that aren't from Canada. We're kind of pushed away from like the league as not that important because of how the whole, how would I say, the contracts and things are written out between Canada and the US, and revenue based income and things like that. That is beyond me. But I think us winning that championship really solidified like Masai and his process and how he thinks and how he views not only basketball, but just life in general, and really like shows that like he knows what he's talking about, he knows what he's doing, and he stands firm in what he says, and what he does, and his commitment to making the players better and making the world better around them.
Right on. Well, listen, I'm not just, if anybody else have anything they'd like to ask of Norman. If not, I'd like to share with you and give you a little update. And Norman, how long do you have to stay with us tonight?
Let's see, we have a player meeting at 10 o'clock. So it's 9:40.
Okay.
Hey, Michael, if it's okay, I'd like to ask one question.
Okay, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Norman, thanks for coming on. My name is Jonathan Terry. I'm an assistant coach over at El Cajon Valley High School with Coach Ray Mill in basketball. You touched on something a few minutes ago I think is very important. You said that there's times when it gets to be too much. You have someone, they provide something in the NBA to talk to, like someone to talk to. At my job, we have what we call Black employee engagement, and then we have what's called allied engagement. And during these discussions, there's been time when it gets to be too much, sometimes even for me and for some of my coworkers. I'm a big advocate on mental health, which is not always talked about, especially with Black men. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big advocate for that. And I think it's very important. So my question is, what advice would you give for coaches and for our athletes when we're going through this movement and struggles and they say it's just too much? What would you suggest we do, and what would you suggest for the athletes?
I think you have to, it's very important to not hold in how you're feeling, and for me, I talked to one of my boys on the team, Fred, and we were talking about having a mental health coach that comes from where we come from, and can actually sympathize and empathize with what we experience. A lot of times that we have white mental health coaches, and they sit there and be like, oh yeah, like we we know, we understand, well, these are things you can do. Well, it's like, you don't know, you don't understand, because you've never been in our situation. You never even experienced this. So how can you tell me you understand and give me ways to relieve this stress or get over this depression or these feelings of anxiety of the things that I see, if you really don't know the core and the depth of what I'm feeling, because you've never experienced this type of oppression and this type of inequality and racism that we feel on a day-to-day basis growing up and what we see in the media. So I think the most important thing for coaches and players is to have an open dialogue like the way we have now. I think that's the biggest thing for us that's really helped us, to be able to share our experiences and see how each other has gone through it, and we help one another, and we're open to hearing it, even if you don't really understand and it's not your exact experience. You've been in something similar, so you can give them some type of comfort and outlet and just release. It's tough because the way I grew up in Southeast San Diego, you really couldn't be emotional. You really couldn't just sit there and cry and whine and complain. It was suck it up. This person over here is not crying, like this, that, and the other. Like to be a man, you gotta be tough and fight through all these things. So you have a lot of built up anger and resentment for the things that you experience, and you haven't even had the chance to really let it out, and vent that. So to have coaches and people in place that you're actually able to have a full out open discussion without being judged, without being viewed differently, has been like the biggest thing for us, and us as players, like we've literally talked to one another about what's going on and how we feel, and having somebody that agrees and sees where you're coming from, kind of brings takes that pressure off you, to know that you're not the only one in this fight. You're not the only one feeling this pain and going through that.
Great question, Jonathan. Thank you for asking. Okay, and I think what we've been doing here for the last 4 weeks now has been all about that, Norman. We've been talking, and I want to once again elevate your coach, Jeff Harper-Harris, for pulling this together. And so last night, Jeff talked about a meeting that we had as a group of us that got together, and because the question is, where are we going with this? What is this? What are we trying to accomplish? And many of you are on that call right now. So I'm going to share the screen right now, give you a quick overview and update, and let you know that this is a living, breathing draft document just to share with you. And we're going to ask for your input tonight to a little check-in to see if we are all moving in the same direction right now. So I'm going to share this screen, and we'll go ahead to right here. So as Jeff, as you see, he put this hashtag together, Coaches Against Racial Inequality. Anything that you see here is up for discussion, but basically to give you a summary of where we've been up to this point right now, we've been building a game plan for racial reconciliation. And so the first step that we've gone through right here is compile what we already know, and that's what everybody has brought to these Zoom meetings right now. Further engage the community and thought leaders, which is all of you. This all started originally as basketball coaches, then it morphed into officials, came on, and then parents and athletes, and that's what has really made this experience rich for everybody. The third thing here is identify and attend key community meetings to learn and build relationships. So there's many of us that are on these calls right now that are doing more than just this Wednesday at 6 o'clock Zoom meeting. We're in other, I know Jeff's talked about the football meetings he's been in. I've been in meetings with pastors and law enforcement and others. And so all of us are bringing more of those experiences to the table. The fourth thing here is develop a game plan. Ultimately, this is where we're at right now, is we want to develop a game plan for racial reconciliation. And then we want to host ongoing and accessible opportunities for community input. So this is going to be an ongoing, living, breathing opportunity for everybody to participate, get involved, and grow it. And then the final thing here is produce measurable results. So if all we're doing is showing up on a Wednesday night and talking about it, I don't think we're going anywhere. And Norman, that's why I'm so thrilled that you're here tonight to talk about what the NBA, what the individual teams, and what the players have done, because I think everybody wants to be result oriented and not just, look back a year from now and say we did nothing. So what does that game plan look like? So last night, this is what the group kind of focused on right here and what we're presenting to all of you for consideration right here. So the first bullet here is to educate our own coaches and then coaches who we are in contact with, either through your league or conference, about Coaches Against Racial Inequality. So everybody's not on this call. Should they be on the call? That's a good question, but what would it take to get them on the call? But starting with your own coaches. So if you're a varsity head coach, then hopefully you're talking to your assistant coaches and all the coaches in your program and maybe in your school. And then if you've got coaches within your league that need to be here, invite them to come and participate. I'm going to pause right here. And if anybody on the call from last night would like to expound on this or add to it, please feel free to do so. Okay, if not, I'll go to the second bullet. The second bullet here is to educate our players. So starting with your coaches first, then your players about coaches against racial inequality, and then help create interaction with other teams beyond competition. And so this kind of came out of the topic when the athletes started coming to the call, talking about their experiences going on the road to play other teams, or when other teams would come to play in your home court, what it would be like, on how maybe this can all be cut off at the pass before those games even tip off. So it ends up being about the competition, and not about the things that we've been experienced up to that point. I'll pause once again for any comments here.
I do have, I'm just reading the bullet points. I wasn't on the call, the call that you're talking about, but I do have input. I was going to talk to Coach Jeff about this later, but the MBPA has grants and things like that that they give the players who are very active in the community and to help affect change, and they're really 100% behind helping any way they can. So I just wanted to say, if we're able to come up with and have a program in place to affect change in the community, and something that we can stick to and really grow, the MBPA is willing to back that, and put money behind it, to really get the things that we need in place to grow what we're doing in our community, and really affect change. So I'm really excited to see this, but I just wanted to put that out there, and us coming together with a game plan and how we can really make this happen. That I have a driving support behind us with the PA, and helping putting money towards what I'm doing and what we're doing.
That's right on time, because if you look at bullet 5, we're going to get to it in a second, but just look at that. We'll get there pretty quick. All right, the third bullet right here is educate our fan base about coaches against racial inequality, and then identify a person on every campus who helps educate the student body on how to treat people well in a competitive environment. So we know we've gone to some hostile environments over the years, and administrators have kind of been sitting on the sideline, didn't do much to check it, stop it, say anything about it, but we want to end that. That's one of the things we talked about. Next is educate our parents and adults / alums of the schools about coaches against racial inequality, and identify a circle of amplifiers. Those are people that believe in what we're trying to do here to support our goal of racial reconciliation. And then finally, Norman, here's one, and Scott Giusti is on the call right now as well. He's the athletic director for San Diego Unified Schools. Create a 30-minute video on the topic of racial reconciliation for school districts to present as a mandatory training for all athletic department personnel. Okay, so these are the, this is what we came up with last night. I'm going to unshare the screen and open it up for your comments.
I know Norman has to go in a second, but yeah, basically what you see in that, we're trying to hit every aspect of what touches our student athletes' lives, from the parents to the players to the administrators to the coaches, and get to a baseline level of understanding, because we were discussing, especially in San Diego, minorities being such a minority out here. I think some of our grievances and things that we want to address are sometimes drowned out or not particularly listened to. And in San Diego, they've been getting away with a lot of what Delina describes as microaggressions against us. you know the feeling when you show up to some North County schools and they have certain theme nights or certain chants and things that they'll do, and it's a big task that we have, but by breaking it down into those separate categories, we think we can push the needle in the right direction.
Great comments. Anyone else?
I got something on that. To take it a step further, I think that 30-minute video is a great idea. I know as football coaches, we got to do that thing every year where you get your CPR and your concussion test, where you got to get those certificates. So if there'd be a way to kind of add that in the NFHS thing, where you know how you watch that video, then click continue, you get your certificate, kind of add one of those things in regards to everything going on. So it's a mandatory thing for coaches at least to kind of put in their repertoire with that they have to pass in order to coach. Like you got to go through this course to kind of get on board, and if you can learn to do CPR and you can learn to do all that, you can definitely take the time to learn about the racial inequality stuff that's going on in sports. So I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, son. Scott, too, I know you came on towards the end of Norman's comments, but I'm going to tell you right now, and Jeff and all of you that were on the call last night, what he talked about for 30 minutes up to the time you got on, Scott, could be that 30-minute video. He talked about everything that's going on in the NBA, his perspective on why it's important, what's happening. I mean, here's one of our own who could put that video together, and it would be magnificent. But that was a great, and Scott asked for that. So yeah, Jeff talked about it. He said, you got to do the training for COVID and the other things that Michael talked about just now, but can we put something together like that? Scott, you want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I was in conversation, actually. That's why I just sent you the private message saying, hey, can I get that PowerPoint? I was in conversation today with people in HR saying, hey, we have something coming. As your son mentioned, we make football coaches do something that we don't make any of our other coaches in our district do. They have to be recertified on a yearly basis in blocking, tackling, NFHS stuff. This would be something that, as we talked about, if you guys put something together, that I will work to get it to where all of our coaches, administrators, etc., have to take this to be able to coach our students. So it's really getting something that's engaging. And then some of the things that we talked about is we're going to want to do this yearly. So is this something that's the video or a training that's going to be updated yearly, or will this, how it's being built, needs to be considered? We said that it would be better if it was yearly so you could address it. But if like Norman could put something together, that's automatic clout with the kids anyway, right out of the gate, in all honesty. It's much better than a dry district training of making them go through the motions, that kind of stuff. So I do think I'll be able to get it done. It's just a matter of it being provided for me. And then, as I mentioned, we were already dealing with district personnel today on it.
That's beautiful. And Jeff, I'll tell you what, and I'm going to throw this back at you, Jeff. You're the one that asked the question. Can we make it a mandatory training? And what I'm hearing right now, Scott, that's why we all need to thank you as well for being present. You know, as an administrator, I mean, we've got a couple of administrators on the call right now. Mike Hopp is not only a head coach at Saints, but he's also a vice principal there. And I'm sure there's others on the call as well. But what you're doing, Scott, by being here is very important to us. And yes, I will get that to you tonight. So thank you very much. Any other comments about what you just saw?
The other thing I wanted to just point out is why I'm dealing with it for San Diego Unified. I also had some conversations today with in a superintendent's meeting that I was representing San Diego Unified. And I think there is interest, not just in our district, but if we do this and we do it well, I have a feeling we could spread it to the other districts as well.
CIF San Diego section. Yeah. I think we can get that done. Thank you, Scott. Any other comments about what you just saw? Ed?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jeff. Thanks a lot for having me here. I'm new here, so you don't know me. My name is Ed Hine. I'm a retired Navy SEAL. And I do some work with kids. And Scott, and I was looking at that PowerPoint, you're talking about the video and stuff, which I absolutely 100% agree. And I did this with the SEAL teams 15 years ago. We created a different culture. And we did it by creating an ethos, and we made it permeate every part of our organization. So when we talk about having some training, once a year, or once a quarter, whatever is good, but I think it needs to permeate the organization's dialogue. So the coaches and the players, their dialogue actually has to change. The wording has to change to make it effective and make it stick. Because it's important that change sticks over time. So yeah, I think I love what you guys are doing. I'm just watching, but yeah, I think over time it needs to be able to stick, and that has to be a cultural shift and it has to be a daily dialogue.
Thank you, Ed. Okay. Any other comments on, and once again, it's a working draft. It's a work in progress, but I wanted everybody to know that we are moving towards something, and that's what's important. Your time is valuable to all of us. And so for us to be, sitting and talking about things, how many times we heard people just talk about things but never do anything? And so what we all want to be is a change agent that's going to make an impact and do it the right way. And that's why your time is valuable, but your thoughts are valuable as well. Is there anything you think glaring that we're missing out of that document? If I need to put it back up, let me know, but anything you thought may have been missing at this time?
Sorry, I just wanted to say something before I had to leave. I'm very excited to actually be a part of this, and I'm looking forward to being on more of these calls and talking to you, Michael, and Coach Jeff, and everybody else involved in pushing for change and progress within the community and San Diego school districts. Sorry that I have to get off right now. I would love to stay on and talk more about this and be a part of it, but definitely looking forward to hopping on and seeing how I could help be an advocate any way possible. Whatever you guys need, a video, literally whatever you need. I'm here, and I'm going to talk to Jared Dudley too about how he can jump on and be a part of change in San Diego, coming from San Diego himself, and seeing how we can help. But I want to thank all you guys for allowing me to be on and listening and having me share my thoughts just before I hop off and head to this players meeting.
And Norman, I can tell you right now that this Zoom call was recorded. So there's going to be a whole lot more people hear your thoughts on a go-forward basis. So we appreciate you being here, and go on and get that repeat now.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes. Raise that trophy one more time. Good.
All right, guys.
All right. Good night now.
All right, good night.